this is a major issue, and I think this is a topic that we all can get together, whether you're Republican or Democrat, rural or city, poor or rich. This is something that we should be all united and saying that everyone deserves a good food in this country, and we should do everything to make sure that that's possible.
So when you look at yogurt, there's sort of like before Chobani and then after Chobani, and we've just seen, we've seen consumption of, especially of Greek yogurt, just dramatically increase since Chobani, and it almost proves that any category can be upended very quickly. And I'm curious, what advice you have for other Davids who are fighting Goliaths?
Yeah. So one thing that people don't realize, that the food, especially in this country, disrupting category in a meaningful way, it really is not the product idea, which is important. It really is in the fundamentals of operation. That means plants. That means people in the plants, in the manufacturing, sales force, supply chain, and being good at those boring fundamentals, boring disciplines. We have managed to do that because I personally, at Chobani, number one thing that we are all factory workers. I am a factory worker before I'm anything else. So my advice to food people are saying is, number one is product. You have to have a product, or at least a vision of product what you do. Number two is pay attention to the fundamentals, operation, food safety. Food safety is extremely important to make sure that you never take your eyes off from that. I think the long-term view of making a shift on the category through the innovation and through new coming is making sure that your future is secured. So basically, in the food world, unfortunately, when you start the journey through the investment, family, friends, later on, other institutions coming in, you usually right the end is there's going to be an exit. And that exit usually is to other large companies.
You're a Turkish Kurd who came to America and became a billionaire, selling Greek yogurt to Americans. What other food could have taken you on such a journey?
Oh, wow. I think I cannot imagine anything that could replace the magic of yogurt that transcends through the cultures and the land and the geography in a way that yogurt does. So I'll say that the second one would have been tea, maybe? I don't know.
Yeah. And what do you think, what is the magic of yogurt? Why yogurt of all things? Were you able to do it?
I go back to my childhood, early days, and that's where this journey has started. It didn't matter, you were poor or rich or farmer or lived in the city. You couldn't imagine a table without yogurt if you were growing up in Turkey. And the same thing in Greece. It's something that represents equality. It represents, simplicity of nature. It represents, nutrition. It is something that I grew up with and had a massive impact on me and growing up, and how my mother talked about it, how we share stories around it. So from that perspective, I always missed it when I was here. Living upstate New York, I always thought, where is that yogurt? It can't be so hard to make it. And I was always also sad that simple food was absent on people's kitchen table here.
It's a whole new world, but has anything truly changed? This is Bloomberg Wall Street Week. I'm David Weston. This week, contributors Larry Summers of Harvard, Glenn Hubbard of Columbia, and Liz Ann Saunders of Charles Schwab. Former Secretary of Commerce Penny Pritzker.
Actually, the marketplace is driving this, and frankly, the government is catching up.
Former FDIC Chair Sheila Bair.
You need to go big right now. The country, the economy is still in serious trouble.
And Council on Foreign Relations President Richard Haas. The United States got a new president this week in an inauguration unlike any other, with 25,000 National Guard troops called in for security, and hardly anyone in the audience kept away because of COVID. But it was more than just a change in administration. It was a change in philosophy and tone and approach.
Politics doesn't have to be a raging fire, destroying everything in its path. Every disagreement doesn't have to be a cause for total war.
And signs of a change in direction as well, as President Biden issued 15 executive orders on his very first day, undoing a wide range of his predecessor's policies. But with all the talk of change, how much is really different? This week, we also had the new president's nominee for Treasury Secretary, Janet Yellen, testifying at her confirmation hearing about just how bad the economy still is, asking Congress to do a lot more to keep us going before we can even think about rebuilding.
When economists look back on the pandemic, I expect they'll conclude that Congress's actions averted a lot of suffering. But more must be done.
And on the day before President Biden took office, the country passed the mark of 400,000 people dead from COVID-19, even as states continue to struggle to get vaccines into people's arms. In Europe, the ECB pointed to the possibility of a double-dip recession, but kept its pandemic bond-buying program steady at 1.85 trillion euros, betting on stimulus to counteract the crippling effects of extended lockdowns in countries like Germany, but saying it will take another look in March when it has more data. So how did the markets process all this talk of change and all this staying the same? Well, equity spent 4 days moving up on hopes of the new Biden administration and the promise of vaccinations, only to have some second thoughts at the very end of the week. But still, overall, the S&P was up by 2%, and the NASDAQ had its best week since early November. The drivers, though, had more to do with staying at home than getting back to normal, as sectors like communications, tech, and consumer discretionary led the way, and materials, financials, and energy trailed. Bonds didn't really move much of anywhere, commodities were mixed, and the dollar continued to weaken. To help us see things the way the markets, and for that matter those who invest in the markets do, we welcome now Liz Ann Saunders. She is Charles Schwab Chief Investment Strategist. Liz Ann, always great to have you with us on Wall Street Week. Thank you for being here. Give us the perspective. What did the markets see this week, and how did they react to it?
So I think what the market has seen really in the last couple of weeks is a change in the near-term trajectory of the economy. And you can really go back to the early September time period, up until which we had seen such dominance by the big five names, that concentration in parts of the market that were seen as the only COVID beneficiaries. And at that time in early September, there was more than a 60 percentage point spread between the big five and the entire rest of the S&P. Then these series of rotations started. It really kicked into high gear in early November, out into areas that hadn't worked, into much more traditionally cyclical areas because of the vaccine and pun intended, the shot in the arm that meant for the economy. But then by virtue of the virus and seeing the weaker economic data, retail sales, the December jobs report, I think we've seen this reversion back to those kind of stay-at-home stocks, what have been this era's defensive stocks.